Okay, so this is where we left off. We looked at a few drawing based examples of what a full cycle can and does look like until it inevitably either fails or until the full cycle plays out and continues playing out. Now, again, remember, all of what we're doing so far is based on the entry time frame. We haven't focused much on the validation of the context time frame or the principles by which we decide if a market is worth watching on those. So at the moment, all we're doing is we're breaking down basic foundations of the entry time frame and the entries that could be potentially available to us on those given time frames. So, as promised, now we're going to look at the full cycle of the market through some actual examples of stuff that we did in a test video that you guys saw, as well as stuff that I've actually traded. So we're going to do this for a little bit, but we're going to get this for sure embedded in your minds because, as I love to say, the entire market is not based on some black and white rule of what's going on. Instead, there are phases through which a market can and does play out. And in the event that a trend is delivering, that's what we want to be part of. So this is where you get introduced to what we call the trend template or the full cycle. Both are pretty much the exact same thing. So when I say trend template or when I say full cycle or a trend template, right, exactly the same thing. I just want you to remember I'm talking about specifically the things that occur that create a trend. So the thing that we want to do as traders is we want to position ourselves within the trend template. We want to execute trades within what we suppose to be a true trend template because in that sense, every time we execute a trade, we're doing so with the knowledge that in the event the composite operator is getting truly behind this move and the move is going to go, we're going to be there. So the idea of what we do is we orient ourselves in the market, we understand where we are, we look at the cycle to understand that a trend template is delivering, and we simply get involved using the overall trend template, understanding that it's going to result in continuation delivery. So let's look at a few examples of this full cycle together using the exact stages outlined here. And before doing so, what I want to do is I want to create a few labels so you're aware of why we're labeling certain things. So simply, the major flush we're going to label as MF, okay? So we're going to use MF as the label to just label a major flush. That's the first step of the cycle, and we're just going to label it as such. The stage one, or the anticipation of a higher low, stage one, right? Because that's all that's happening. We're simply going to name it as stage one. It's just S1, very simple, stage one. So these are just simple labels for me. So similarly, stage two, flush, so normal flush would be an F, just a lowercase f, to not confuse anything else. And fractal stage one and stage two is also just going to be S1 or S2 or FS1. Okay, overall, I just want to create some simple labels so that when we look at the actual examples and we put on labels, we don't have to type out the whole thing again. So we can now take a look at the full trend template. So in the last few videos, as you've been going through the portal, what you should have seen is where we did a minor test or a minor playthrough and a walkthrough of using what we understand so far in markets on, in this case, NVIDIA on the 65-minute chart for entries, where we simply followed the market, we looked for that major flush, we looked for the cycles to begin, the cycles basically created MBs, and we entered through MBs into this market, and we tried to sustain the move through new stage ones and twos. And if it continued to move in stage ones and twos, and continuously delivered in that given cycle before ever failing, we would just simply get involved again, and through new flushes, we would take new MBs. So what I've done is I've taken off all of this, and I've simply made it clear like this, okay? Because what I want to do is I'm going to show you guys a trending-based market, a market that has trended, that has delivered, and I want to go through the cycle so you understand how each market undergoes the exact same cycle, specifically for the entry time frame, since this is the full cycle of the entry time frame. So if we zoom in, we can start from the very left, and we can basically walk ourselves through overall price, okay? What I mean by this is, yeah, we're just going to walk through the overall price that happens on this, and I'm going to do so in a blue so we can see stuff. There we go. With blue, we should be able to see everything. So very simply, price comes off of whatever we have on here so far, which is we start from here, and all we have is price comes down, goes sideways, and starts to move higher. So what we're instantly going to assume is that this was a stage one of some sort, because again, we can start anywhere in the overall cycle. So we can say this is a stage one, and from there, right, so stage one into a stage two, into a stage two, into a stage one, right, that had an F inside of it, so that's a flush, into a stage two, which actually looks like it delivered bigger, just like this. And then within it, you could have argued you had, let's say, the minor stage ones, and stage twos and stage ones and stage twos. So this is generally what the market started at. This is where we just started. There was a repetition of stage ones and twos. And we know, on average, when you have repetition of stage one and two, that might be an underlying overall market condition until a major flush happens. And through a major flush comes the potential reset of a potential full cycle. So very simply, that's what we would likely expect out of this move. And all of a sudden, we do. We get a big flush out, a big move down against the price. So very simply, we're going to label that in, let's say, maybe a purple color. Why not? As MF, okay? And we can just draw it in if we want. So there you are. You have a major flush out. This is a major flush out. That's all it is. And as we know, through the cycle, within a major flush out, we likely create some kind of anticipation of a higher low of the existing leg, or we do so later on at some point. So if you don't like this as the anticipation of a higher low, you can just view this as a major flush out, followed by, as we can see here, a stage one into the delivery of a stage two. That's made up of kind of mini stage ones and twos. So probably I would label these ones all as red ones. Stage one, stage two, stage one. You know, we can just draw them stage one, stage two, stage one, stage two, stage one, stage two. And then you kind of get this back to the blue, larger stage one, that then fails down. So again, we start getting the delivery of stage one, stage twos, just like we did here for the beginning of the trend template. And when we have delivery of stage ones and stage twos repeated, we understand that the next potential likelihood is either a flush, if it's the starting points of an accumulation, or a major flush. So what I would label this as in this scenario here is I would label this thing right here as a major flush again. I don't see this as a minor flush of the overall move. I see this move as starting a larger move and then failing down as a major flush, which is good because a major flush can lead to either a market condition that overall fails or a market condition that creates a new trend template. And within this major flush, we already multiple times, whether you use the MentaFX indicator that you already have on your charts now where it starts taking out a low, or if you just simply look at the general larger structure that's currently being created and being held by this, right? We understand that the anticipation of the higher low rule is already met from either one of these lows. So very simply, we have a major flush, which leads into, as we said before, and as we created the equilibrium sign, the equation sign, that basically said that all of these things right here act as similar points in time because they all respect each other and they create a move using each other, right? So through this major flush right here, we have the anticipation of a higher low created, which simply puts in motion an accumulation. So instead of using the anticipation of a higher low rule now, I'm going to simply call this, well, I can call it anticipation of a higher low rule because we understand that at some low, at some point, we don't know where, but we know that this major flush is likely leading to overall accumulation. Now, simultaneously, price could have continued and maybe continued to fail down. And guess what? That would have led to, once again, a major flush that could have led to a worthless market or a market not worth trading, right? Because a market can become useless because overall the cycle either starts off and delivers, or the cycle doesn't happen, it doesn't start delivering, it maybe fails in some way, as per the example 3 that we went over. And all of a sudden you have a worthless market that's no longer worth looking at. Now, in this case here, because again, we have the luxury of looking at something that's already delivered, we have an accumulation. And from this accumulation, as we know, should start stage ones into stage twos. And as a result, if stage ones begin out of this market, what we should also see is these stage ones being made up of MBs that start making moves to the top side. So what we do have is a validation of an MB here. Well, we have multiple, of course, as we always do. Okay, don't forget that. So we have multiple, but this is an MB, followed by an MB, okay? Followed by a larger MB, within which we have minor fractal MBs that lead to moves. If you remember, this exact MB right here is one that led to one of the entries that we considered in our previous test. That was the entry that we saw right here. Price began to create MBs to the top side within that overall stage one, and now with the added full cycle labeling that you have access to because we're going through it right now, that led to one of these very, very large moves, okay? So we have the stage one within which we look to get positioned for the delivery of a potential stage two, right? So a minor stage two kind of came out of this market, or you could have looked at this as a mini 1 into 2, a 1 into 2 as a fractal. So all of this acted as stage 1 right here. And then from that came a larger stage 2. right, which made this move higher. So now, because we know we're in a general overall move of a market, we know the next step is likely a normal flush, or of course a major flush, because that can happen at any point, but likely a normal flush that leads to new stage ones and stage twos that continue delivering. So as this comes in for a flush, which we would assume was a flush at the time, right? Because it came down, made a move down, so do lowercase f, flush down. From there, we know we're building likely some kind of stage one, because a flush or a major flush creates the blueprint or the trend template for a stage one into a stage two, right? So remember, keep thinking to the cycle, which you should have written down, so you should be able to access it in some notebook or something somewhere, so I don't have to keep going here, because I won't keep going here because I remember this. Major flush will lead to some kind of stage one into stage two, and oftentimes that will lead to minor flushes into repetitive stage ones and stage twos until a move completes for a new major flush to repeat this overall market cycle again. So we have major flush into accumulation. We have that accumulation creates stage ones and twos, which are made up of MBs. Those MBs come in and start making a move higher. As price moves higher, and as I've discussed a few times, but I'll continue discussing it, as price moves higher, right, it creates other MBs like these ones here. These were really good, again, out of these points. But as it moves higher, we also start to create MBs through the trend, right? There are going to be MBs that are more trend-based, like these ones here, that tend to move for a little bit and then fail quickly. Like I spoke about before, and I want to ingrain this in your mind as we do this, you are building out systems tailored directly to yourself. You are creating profitability around the kind of systems that make the most sense to you, that give you the best chance to take an edge out of the market and make money. Okay, so I have members, I have taught members that are profitable, extremely profitable, that trade systems like these, where they enter through the MBs down here. These are more so the MBs I tend to enter. And I've also seen immense profitability from traders that trade MBs like these. Because guess what? Not all MBs like this end up going just for a little bit. Some, even on the higher end, end up going for huge runs in the event you get positioned, right? It's just that the rules behind these MBs forming is a little bit different than the MBs that form lower, right? You just have to have an eye for which type you're trading and develop a system around that. So that's just something to remember. Nonetheless, we go through this flush. That is the creation of the cycle. And again, that should create some kind of stage one into two. So at the moment, we already have that stage one. And again, that stage one is being made up of minor fractal stage ones and twos, which also are representations, since we understand stage ones and stage twos are created by MBs, of the formation of MBs. So we have MBs getting created inside of this area, MBs getting created inside of this area, right? And if you remember, these MBs and the formation of them actually led to one of the entries that we actually took as well during that overall test of looking at stage one, stage two delivery and getting involved in the trend. Okay. Now from there, price did not end up starting a stage two, right? It continued making these mini ones and twos and ones and twos, and those are those MBs that we tried to trade, but then price failed lower. So at that point, what's actually happening is that blue stage one is likely just becoming bigger, because theoretically, based on what we've already learned so far, there's a general stage delivery of any given color of stage to the market. And you can notice how whether it was this and then it went, or this, the bigger one, and then it went, either one still works because both represent the same thing happening. And that brings us back to the exact same point we made before. The snowflake delivery of the market might be a little bit unique every single time. And simultaneously, we can't always predict exactly how these stage ones and twos concate the price action. But what we do understand is that a trend template is occurring. And if the trend template is occurring or the full cycle is playing out, that's an opportunity for us to get involved, given that everything else is met, because we know the composite operator wants to take the market in a given direction. So that's edge we can take out of the market. Okay, so stage one continues, and simply this F becomes an F, right? Now, what we can do is you can label this thing here as a major flush as well. Both are valid, right? Because whether this is a flush or a major flush, we understand that following a major flush or following a flush, you get the same thing. You get a stage one, right? Or you get a stage one. It's the exact same thing. It's just that sometimes what will happen is in a truly major flush, you'll oftentimes get that anticipation of the higher low rule, which overall creates accumulation. But notice how that rule doesn't have to occur specifically for a market to be tradable or in a good condition, because sometimes you might get a market that accumulates, creates that overall anticipation of the higher low rule, starts a move, and then you might get big flushes that don't necessarily meet a potential anticipation of the higher low rule, but are still very much valid to be traded. And all of a sudden, you get beautiful entries that lead to huge gains, right? Because again, the anticipation of the higher low rule is almost the start of a cycle, and that start of the cycle could be pronounced and continue for a very long time due to these rules right here, where stage 1 and stage 2 can repeat intermittently or over and over and over again until a true major flush comes in to start a new brand new move, okay? So either way, you could label this as a major flush or a flush. Both are technically correct. And from there, once again, you know that within a stage 1, we start to build MBs, as we know. So from here, and there's multiple MBs to draw, we start building MBs, we start building MBs, we start building MBs, all of which create opportunities for entries and all of which are basically creating smaller fractal stage 1s and stage 2s, 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 stage 1s and stage 2s. And as I draw these in red, you should, or some of you should be noticing, or might even notice, that some of your systems and some of you are going to want to build systems around trading specific MBs within a delivering trend. Some of you are going to have a lot of hard time. Well, you're going to have a hard time no matter what. But some of you are going to have a very hard time with finding edge and trading these kind of stage 1s and 2s, the larger ones. Some of you are going to be able to make a lot more money and understand that your system is going to make a lot more money if you wait for the fractal delivery of stage 1s and 2s and trade the MBs that get created through those. Some of you are going to make money simply on a move from here, a buy here, a stop here, a move up, and you get out here. I know traders that make millions of dollars and have made millions and pulled millions from the market simply trading moves where they enter here, they put their stop here, they let the move start, they take a partial, they let the rest run for a little bit, and maybe they get stopped out higher up. And that's it. That's their entire systems. Your systems don't have to be complicated, but what you do need to do is you need to develop one instance of a trade for now and focus on that trade, which is why I'm showing you a few examples, because as you understand the cycle, or as you become better equipped to understand the cycle, you start understanding the portions of the cycle that are worth trading for you. And then what's cool about that is that you can scan the market, which I'm going to teach you to do, or you'll see videos on that, to scan the entire market for markets that meet the cycle criteria that you personally make the most money in. And you will simply look to execute your MBs and your entries through that cycle and where your edge is found, right? Very, very simple. So yes, you get these stage 1 and 2 deliveries of a fractal time frame. And I would assume that, again, because we see that normal stage 1s in regards to the blue color are on average around this size, this size, this size. So really the next one that's really a stage 1 is this one, right? And this is your stage 2. So again, you now have the delivery of stage 1s and 2s, and these act as minor flush outs that lead to, as you could all guess, new MBs within them. Since stage 1s lead to MBs, stage 1s lead to the creation of MBs, which, as you've gone through the course and continue to work through the portal material here, are the creation and validations of demand across other timeframes that create beautiful moves. And from there, those beautiful moves, again, are representations of fractal 1s into 2s, 1s into 2s, 1s into 2s, 1s into 2s. And then you start getting a larger 1. Okay? And this, once again, acts as a flush or a major flush as you see equipable, right? This is up to you how you kind of view this. I would personally expect this to make, due to the fact that we've had a big move, I would expect this to really flush out for a while for it to be considered a major flush, because that would reset a move overall and start a new accumulation. So instead, I would still continue viewing what we saw here as likely just a normal flush. Okay, so we understand we're still in this market condition right here, where we basically have undergone a major flush into the anticipation of the higher low rule, stage 2, and now we're in flush, stage 1, stage 2, flush, stage 1, stage 2, made of fractal stage 1s and 2s, stage 1s and 2s, stage 1s and 2s, flush, stage 1, stage 2, over and over and over again. That cycle is now repeating, right? And again, this becomes at stage 2, this becomes at stage 1, this becomes at stage 2. I would say even this can become a stage 1 just because of its size, right? So again, not a perfect rule for being able to decide which one's the perfect stage 1 or 2, but a general rule that highlights what is actually going on, right? Builds MBs within a stage 1 because that's how prices work. And as they move higher, right, we start doing so within fractal 1s and 2s, 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 and 1s and 2s, and then we get failure again, right, or flush out. Here's our flush out, right? Again, I would not characterize this necessarily as a major flush. A flush can lead to a major flush, which would become, a reset of the overall market condition. But I would still characterize what was going on here as just a normal flush. And as this continued, I would assume that this was that stage 2, and we've started a new stage 1. And from there, as we all should know, that stage 1 should lead to potentially new MBs to start a new stage 2. Now, as that stage 2 starts, price fails back down, which we now know as potentially larger term stage 1, right? We could draw this as a larger stage 1. If anything, this is kind of the largest stage 1 we've had in a while. So this might be a little question mark of, is this market actually going to make a move, or is it ready for a more major fail, or becoming a worthless market, or something along those lines, right? So maybe at this point, even right here, you might start considering this as a major flush, or as a major flush in building a new potential stage 1 in the future that's going to lead to new moves later. Okay, so as we look at this, right, this is the general blueprint through which we would highlight the overall market. And just I want to remind everyone that I'm looking at the stage 1s. I'm looking at the MBs within the larger stage 1s. But don't forget, just like I did here, there are of course MBs based on the kind of person you are going to be and the kind of trader you're going to be that also exist higher up into the move. Some of you, like I said before, are going to trade moves just like this one right here, where after price has proven itself, you'll enter and you'll look to take smaller scalps or smaller moves out of the market, right? Because for some people, for some traders, this right here, if you entered this MB through the stage 1, is the start of a move, and they're probably taking a break even on this when price comes back. But for other people, and this is very important to remember this about traders, this right here is a beautiful fractal stage 1 MB move that they take, and their profit is made literally from here to here, right? You need to remember that based on the kind of person you are and the kind of system you want to have, your systems are going to be different in their management, in their holding periods, in their time frames, in the kind of MBs you want to enter, in the kind of areas within the full cycle that you enter. Because I'm just reminding you that each trader is a little bit unique in regards to the kind of moves they actually want to profit on. I've seen traders do a version of this where simply if they're trading for themselves, maybe around a $1 million account, they will simply put $10,000 on a trade with their stop here. They will have a $10,000 position on this, right? Or not a position, but a $10,000 risk on this. And simply by this point, they've already moved their stop to break even. And by this point, they're taking a full profit, right? And for them, this is a gain on their account of around $10,000. Right. And that's their entire trading system. Their entire trading system is finding these mini points, these mini fractal stage 1s and 2s to make their money. There are many ways to make money in the markets, and I'm incorporating these psychological pieces of help as well as systems that I've seen between a multitude of traders to remind you all that what you're doing is you're understanding the fundamentals of how the market works, so you can build out a system and an entry criteria and a management around your actual persona, around your actual demands, your needs, your wants, so that you can actually execute profitably and take advantage of the market on your own time and through your own gauge, right? Through your own, through what actually makes you money. So I just want to remind everyone of that as we do this, okay? Now, this is how I would, in general, label this whole thing, right? And I would say that this is leading to a new potential like major flush that's going to lead to either new stage 1s that start moves that we can then start trading, or it's going to lead to failure, okay? So this is the overall conditions that we were kind of looking at in that video that you saw me just simply take a few trades. That's what's actually going on there, right? So now that video, if you even rewatch it, might make more sense in regards to thinking about the full cycle and where I'm looking to take entries, right? Because after all, what we're doing as traders is we're understanding or priming ourselves in the cycle of delivery, and then knowing that the composite operator wants to make that move in a given direction or wants to continue the given trend in that given direction. We allow the stage 1s to occur, whether they're fractal or the larger ones, which and a stage 1 we know always will lead to some kind of MB-based creation. And those MBs, whether it be the first, the second, or the continuation ones that go higher up, like I just showed you with a $10,000 example, are the opportunities for us to get positioned, okay? And simply, that's what you saw me do in this example here, okay? So this is an example of the full cycle. And again, just to go through the cycle, right? 1, you have a major flush. 2, you have the buildup of stages, right? Because that meets the anticipation of the high or low rule. Stages begin, and then from there you don't get the minor flushes really. You kind of get this one here. Maybe you could label this as a minor flush, and then price doesn't continue going, and then it goes through another major flush, just like we're expecting this to be in a major flush now. Major flush creates that rule. Overall, structurally, we start to hold these larger structural legs. Those structural legs lead to major flushes, which hold and start accumulations due to the anticipation of the higher low rule. Those stage 1s start creating MBs out of that move. on a fractal level as well, which is why you have fractal stage 1s and 2s within that stage 1. Stage 2s begin. Those lead to new mini flushouts. Those flushouts lead to new, what we suspected to be stage 1s, which become larger stage 1s. Those lead to fractal stage 1s and 2s, which create MBs. Those MBs lead to the delivery of stage 1 and stage 2s fractally, which create the deliveries of stage 2s on a higher basis. Those lead to new minor flushouts, which create new stage 1s, so lead to stage 2. Flushouts that create stage 1s, leading to stage 2s. And these continue to deliver with repetition until the next major flush comes. And off the new major flush, we assume the market will either become worthless and no longer worth watching, or choppy, or whatever it might be, or it becomes a market that gets accumulated, just like we saw here, creates new stage 1s that start new moves through stage 2s that create new MBs that create new moves to keep going, which we will likely take a look at in the next video. So this is how you label the full cycle, or how you take a full cycle look at a trending-based market, which is also known as what we call the trend template, because this is gonna be part of your psychology, where if you're executing within a trend template, that is you doing the work. That is you following the process. That is what you should be doing as a trader, okay? I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.